It's an environmental issue that's become a thorny political problem. Drought in Iran. At the start of this year, Iranians took to the streets to protest inflation and corruption. Well, higher prices are not the only problem. Iran's water is drying up.
There is less and less water coming down from the mountains. There are shortages of water for agriculture in a lot of areas. Farmers are being forced off their land because they don't have enough water for their crops. There are problems with water supplies in some areas where the reservoirs are low and the quality of water is poor.
The extent of the damage is plain to see. In dark red areas, there's no longer a drop of water. 96% of the Iranian territory has been experiencing drought for several years. A striking symbol of the dryness is the Urmia Lake in the north. Once the sixth biggest saltwater lake in the world, it's now disappearing. 5,000 square kilometers have shriveled to 2,000. And despite efforts to save the lake, a salt desert grows instead. Iran's lakes and rivers are drying up for the same reasons. First, the population has more than doubled in the last 2 decades and currently stands at 80 million. And they use a lot of water. In Tehran, the average person uses 300 liters of water per day. That's nearly the same amount as in America and twice the European average. But the main factor is water-intensive agriculture. 93% of the country's freshwater resources are drained by the sector. Poor zoning is partly to blame. Take pistachios, for example. Now, they require massive amounts of water to grow. They're being cultivated in Kerman province on a deserted plain.
The water of the well was 6 to 10 meters deep when I was a child, but today it is 150 meters deep.
Rising temperatures and less rainfall also play a role. So too does the number of dams. 316 have been built, and roughly 100 more are in the works. It's a result of government policies.
Water problems or ecosystem problems or environmental problems are the product of bad management over decades. The wrong perception of development is something that has had a huge impact on what is happening. We are the ones who have created this situation because a lot of people try to blame the problem on climate change and take no responsibility and don't want to be liable for the bad decisions they have made.
The consequences are increasingly felt. Dust and sandstorms, rationed water, and fewer crops. Iran's droughts are a politically sensitive issue that go all the way to the top.
We also face drought in some parts of our country, which is still ongoing, and we hope that the bounty of the Almighty could make up for it in the spring.
Officials acknowledge things must change. Some are betting on a lifeline, and it's more like a pipeline. 600 kilometers to the east lies Lake Saras in Tajikistan. A massive duct could transfer water from the isolated mountain area to Iran. Many say the plan is simply too complicated and expensive. So without a viable solution, there are concerns that worsening droughts could destabilize the government. Now in Syria, drought victims were among the first to protest the Assad regime in 2011. So could Iran follow Syria down the same path of war? Our guest says no. Here's why.
Iran will never have a civil war. The government in Iran, and especially the new government of Rouhani, he knows that if he wants to keep the power in his hand, he has to make some concessions. He has to deliver. He has to give something to the people. And water is, of course, one of the major issues. So in Iran, people have done revolutions 40 years ago. They know the price of a revolution. They don't want new revolutions. The cost is too heavy. So they want a policy change. They want a new life and have water on their table. That's important. Most of the countries of the Middle East are facing a problem of aridity, of lack of water. Iran is one of them, but Iran has a capacity of finding solutions, since in Iran they have got a lot of water in the mountains, and they can find, if they want it, they can find a solution to drought in Iran today. water and the pureness of water, of soil, and of air is the basement of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is a religion of Iran before Islam. So water today, in the environmental crisis in Iran, is shared technically, economically, but also religiously.
Now, Iran may not follow Syria's footsteps, but scientists are clear. If nothing is done, Iran could reach a state of extreme water stress by 2040. A drought may not lead straight to conflict, but it can be a catalyst.